Hi all, welcome to my channel, welcome to my world. This is the world of Wayne. A very special video today, and I'm sure this is going to be a very popular one on the channel because it's probably answering the most asked questions I get every time I do a build. And I put it all in one place. Basically, this is the top 10 things that I use in my workshop. By far the biggest question I get asked on the channel is what glue do I use? So I'm going to go through all the glues I use. And once again, some of these glues depend on what model I'm building at the time, whether it be a part work large scale model or a wooden ship or a garage kit. It all depends, but mostly all the time I use my trusty CA super glue. Now the glue you see here is called Glue It, and I get it from the range stores in the UK. This isn't available online unfortunately, and there are brush on glues which you can get, and I have put some in my Amazon store as well. The reason I actually like this one more than the others is it's a lot thinner. So if you can get a thin brush on super glue, then that's exactly what I'm using here. The reason for that is because obviously it goes on very thin and it doesn't bubble up, and it means there's less clear up afterwards. But definitely this is the glue of choice, so much so that I've got hundreds of these in the workshop because they do sell out quite quick. Unfortunately it is only available in the UK, and you can't ship super glues overseas, so I'm sure there must be a CA brush on thin super glue in your territory, but I have tried to help as much as I can in my Amazon store for that. Another thing, when it comes to gluing clear parts, you can't use super glue because super glue is going to frost up. For that reason I use micro crystal clear. Now micro crystal clear will dry completely clear. It does what it says on the tin. It does take a while to cure though, unfortunately. It takes probably about an hour at least to actually get some sort of stickiness to it. You can use wood glue as well, believe it or not. The difference is that wood glue dries clear as well, but with a yellow tinge. The difference between that and micro crystal clear is that it hasn't got that little yellow tinge on it. But this is what you need if you are working with clear parts. Micro crystal clear is actually good for making a gloss coat as well, believe it or not. I've used it for that now and again as well. But this is definitely what you want to use for clear parts. Now when it comes to wood glue, I'm actually using the Gorilla Glue here. Now you'll probably be thinking, why are you actually showing us wood glue for these large scale models? We don't really need wood glue. Well, actually you'd be wrong. I have used this in the past, and obviously I do use this on my wooden ship up there, but I have used it on things like the Titanics. It's brilliant for attaching the decks to the acrylic base. Again, it has got a long curing time on this, but this will stick pretty much everything. But for wood glue, this is what I'm using here. Now the CA super glues will pretty much stick anything, but if there is things which I just cannot get to stick, my normal go-to now is this stuff. UHU, what's it called? UHU Cola Universal. This is absolutely brilliant stuff. It's very sticky, has got quite a long curing time. Again, you're looking at half hour to 45 minutes to bond parts together. But this will pretty much do all the materials that you wouldn't think it would do. Things like rubbers, plastics, things that are flexible. But this is your sort of general purpose go-to if the other ones haven't worked. Now if super glue's failed and my all adhesive glue's failed, there's only one thing that will bond absolutely everything together, and I use it for things that really do need a strong bond, and that is my Gorilla epoxy resin here. And it's a two-part epoxy resin. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to actually get a bond. It takes about 24 to 48 hours to actually bond completely. It dries perfectly clear and it will bond pretty much anything, but this is definitely the go-to which I use if I do need a real strong bond. If I broke apart and I really need it to be strongly attached again, forget the super glue, I'll be going for this stuff here. But to be honest with you, for large scale models, the biggest glue I use is my brush on CA glue. Now probably the most used thing on the channel is obviously the screwdriver. Now I have worked with loads of screwdrivers in the past, but to be honest with you, by far these wearer screwdrivers are definitely the best to get. Now these are in my Amazon store. They're also available through Mike Lane, and they do come in different sizes. Now you do get Phillips heads and you do get flat heads, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever used a flathead screwdriver for a flathead screw. Most of the time I'm using a flathead screwdriver just to pry parts off that I shouldn't have put in, but definitely PH 0 screwdrivers. That's the size. It stands for Phillips Head 0. That's the size for pretty much any of these 1/8 scale models or these figurine models will use a PH0 screwdriver. For the larger models or the larger screws, you'd need a PH1 screwdriver, which is one of these. And then finally, if it's very delicate and it's very tiny, then a PH00 screwdriver. But as you can see from the unique branding on these, all of these are wearer screwdrivers. To give you an idea, I created this YouTube channel in 2015 and I've pretty much gone through about 4. Bearing in mind they get used every single day. So that's how durable these screwdrivers are. But definitely get yourself some PH0 screwdrivers, preferably of the wearer brand if you want them to last. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Now I've reached the sprightly age of 52 and I'll tell you what, my eyesight is failing, and even with strong prescription glasses it's very hard to see the really tiny things, and to be honest with you, I start wearing now all the time magnifying glasses. Now again, these are available on my Amazon store. I've just recently swapped mine out because I saw an episode of Strange New Worlds, the new Star Trek series, and Scotty in it is wearing these exact ones here, and I thought I've got to get myself some of these. Basically these have got 2 lenses, so I've got these ones here and I've also got a drop down set here, so I can have 2 lenses for extra magnification, and if I want even extra magnification, I can have these as well. They come with a directional light, as you can see there, and obviously you've got 2 brightnesses, one and really bright here. I'll turn that off because that's going to blind you, and they fit comfortably on your head like that. They're very light, they're cushioned at the back, and basically you adjust them by using this knob at the back to make them tighter or looser depending on what's better for you. It does mean that you haven't got anything hurting and bridging your nose there, because they do sit comfortably on your head like that. But this is a game changer for me, because to be honest with you, it was getting to the point where I couldn't actually see some of the screws that I'm putting in. I pretty much, as I said, before the videos start on the channel, I will put this on. You don't get to see that, but every time I'm doing my builds on the workstation, I am wearing this, so I did need something for comfort. But if you are struggling with eyesight, you're struggling to look at details, get yourself a magnifying pair of glasses. It doesn't have to be this one, there's plenty out there. They do come with different lenses as well. As you can see here, I've got a different thickness of lenses. I'm in the middle at the moment. I don't know what I'll be in another 10 years, we'll have to see. But yeah, magnifying glasses. There's something you probably wouldn't think about in the workshop, which I can't do without, is this trusty cutting mat here. Now, you get your cutting mat to basically fit whatever desk size you've got. In my case, I'm using an A2 size, but they come in any size from A0, which is the largest, all the way up to like A5, A6, A7, even tiny ones. The reason I use a cutting mat, twofold really, it's easier to cut on. Because of the sponginess of the cutting mat, it does mean your blade can actually penetrate the material you're cutting. You'll find that when you do that on a hard surface, A, it will slip around, and B, it sometimes rides over the top of it so it doesn't cut things properly. The other reason is, believe it or not, it has got a tiny bit of friction on it, so it does stop things dropping and pinging off in all directions and falling on the floor. But I actually use my cutting mat here. As you can see, I've got a blue one, but I've got a translucent one over the top of it, which is why you can see the World of Wayne logo, which I've just sandwiched between those 2 cutting mats on my cameras. But yeah, if you haven't got a cutting mat, get yourself a cutting mat. The next thing to talk about is pliers, sprue cutters, and every other thing I use for clamping things and doing other things for as well. Let me talk about these. I think before we go into the pliers, let's talk about the sprue cutters first. Now at the moment I use these steady sprue cutters. These are available on my Amazon store. Now any sprue cutter is good for trimming bits of plastic, trimming flashing off sprues and stuff. Do not use these on anything to do with metal. I've gone through so many and broke some of these very expensive sprue cutters by going through wires and stuff like that. The difference between a lot of sprue cutters is some have blades on both of these here. Some have a blade just on one and a flat surface. I find you get a far cleaner cut if you have one which has only got one blade onto a base surface, and that's why I use these. There's less flashing on it as well, but these are my sprue cutters. They are very sharp. For that reason I do keep them in this protective cover here. But this isn't really used on our large scale models all that often. There is sprues for things like spark plugs and stuff that we have to take off, but that's what I'll use that for. But when it comes to all the other pliers that I use here, as you can see, I've got 3 different kinds here. I've got some long nose pliers, which have got a curved section here just to get into areas which I can't reach. I've got these shorter pliers, which have got tough metal grips inside them for actually gripping things if I need to pull something out. Again, I can use these to hold. And the most versatile thing I've got, believe it or not, are these duckbill pliers that I've got here. Now these are great for actually doing photo etch. I can put photo etch in here and bend them over like that. I can also use it with my trusty mini hammer here. And this mini hammer is in my Amazon store. I don't think I've listed this on the top 10 things I use, so I've put it in this section here, but I can clamp things and use it kind of like an anvil on here as well, you see. But 3 lots of pliers. You're definitely going to need something to grip, so that's the things that I use there. Now I apologise if it seems like I'm skirting over the next item to show you, but I don't want it to seem gratuitous, but I'm just going to be talking about cutting instruments. And as you can see here, I've got 3 on the go. Basically, one is just an X-Acto blade, one is just a scalpel that we can get in the UK. I do struggle to find X-Acto blades in the UK. I don't know what that's all about. And then I've got the big Carpenter's standing knife in the centre. That's for all the tough jobs, especially when it comes to wooden shield building, getting through those base wood boards. Easy to cut through once you've got one of those. But they're the 3 cutting instruments that I use. Now another one of the most asked things on the channel is what oil do I use? So as you can see, I've got quite a thick oil in here. This is just a regular 3-in-1 oil. That oil is normally used on sewing machines. It may be a little bit too thick for some people, so you can use a thin grade motor oil. I've even used cooking oil in the past, just something to lubricate so when you're putting the screws in. As you can see here, I've got it in a dispenser. Now these dispensers are invaluable. I was actually bought one for me by the folks over in America, the Hobby Time modelers, when I was at Wonderfest, and I just think they are probably the best thing I've got in the workshop. Basically, it keeps my oil tidy, and it allows me to dip the screws in the top without getting oil everywhere. Because oil is a pain to get out, but it will make your life easier when you're screwing any metal item into something metal. You believe me, it will solve blisters and arm ache trying to get that in. But get yourself some oil and an oil dispenser. It does close, so it does keep it tidy, as you can see there. Keep it on your desktop and you won't regret it. It's probably going to be the game changer if you are building these large scale models. Now in an arm's throw of me of the workshop, I always make sure I've got to hand some tacks and tapes. These become invaluable, especially things like this, which is insulating tape. If you're working with any electrics, you want to put wires together, you don't want to electrocute yourself, need some insulating tape like this. I've got rolls and rolls and rolls of this. This stuff is also good for actually laying wires down when it's doing wire tidy around some things like floor pans and stuff like that, because it's extra sticky. So once this is on, it's been on for about half an hour, it's not going to come off again. To put things down temporarily, I use blue tack, which basically tacks things into place. It's also great for putting things in to keep it standing upright, as you can see there with my scalpel. But it has got a load of uses. Having this is good for holding parts as well when I'm trying to push things in from the other side as well, so always have that. And then the general purpose option is some painter's tape here. I use painter's tape over masking tape because it's not as sticky as masking tape, so when you peel it off you're not going to get any residue, but this is good for obviously masking and again for keeping wires tidy, but always have something like this, because if you need that third pair of hands, it's always good to have some tapes on hand. Now another thing that I keep in a hand's reach distance, and I'm using them all the time, so much so it's probably one of the things that are on reorder the most on my Amazon store, is cotton buds, cocktail sticks, and these are the most versatile things you're probably going to have on your desk. Now the cotton buds I use do have a point at one end and a round end on the other, so if I do need to get into some really tight spaces, I can use this sharp end here. They're brilliant for actually wiping up mess. They're even better for actually clearing up all my oil that I managed to spill from stage 7, I think that was. So always have cotton buds handy, especially if you put too much glue on something as well. Handy to have these to hand just so you can get that off quickly before it dries. And then the other thing is the cocktail stick. Now the cocktail stick is brilliant again for taking grime out of areas, getting this into areas that a screwdriver probably wouldn't get. What I actually use it for is if you need to align 2 holes, put a cocktail stick in rather than a screw, get it round so you can get that hole aligned, and then that means that you'll be able to get another screw into the screw hole to align things like wheels and stuff like that, so you can get that perfectly lined up. But again, on my workstation, never without cocktail sticks and cotton buds. And the final thing I think you should have if you are doing these large scale models, and I'll never be without this, is a voltmeter, so you can check voltages and continuity on different things. Now if you haven't used one of these before, it's not that difficult to use, and I probably will do an instructional video for it, but basically you can check DC voltage to see if you've got power in your batteries or if you've got power going to a circuit. You can check continuity, so you can see if there's actually a full circuit, so if something's broken like switch wires, check the switch so that's working. If you haven't used that and you are looking for a simpler option, then you have got Mike Lane's Testmore Pro, which I have reviewed on the channel, and that's just a case of plugging JST leads into connectors here so you can test them. The trouble is not everything has JST leads. If you just want to check a single LED which hasn't got a wire attached, you can do that. If you want to check a battery, this will do AA and AAA batteries. What happens if you want to check a 9-volt battery? So these are really cheap. They're about £9.99, but they are handy to have because nothing is more draining and demoralizing than turning a model on and it doesn't come on. You're like, what's going on here? Then you have to fault find. So the first thing you check is there power going to the board? If there's no power going to the board, is it the battery or is it the switch? It's going to be one of the two, and then work your way through that. You can do that with a voltmeter. So that is probably another one of the most used things in the channel, because you don't get to see it on these edits, but if something goes wrong, this is the first thing I break out on Mike Lane's test board to figure out what the hell is going on. But anyway, I really do hope you've liked this 10 things that I use in the workshop. Obviously that would be different for things like if I'm building a ship, or if I'm building a garage kit, or if I'm building a sprue kit like up there, but definitely for most of the builds that I do on the channel, a lot of people have asked them about it, and I'm hoping that's actually answered all the questions. Anyway, I really hope you liked that video. If you did, please don't remember to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please remember to subscribe. Other than that, take care.